on his home international, David Howells and Roy. David Howells, of course, from Getley Farm down there, Cymru, Morgan, just out of the Rhondda Valleys, where he farms on the family farm. And David, of course, is an accomplished handler, and we see a lot of him and his brother Lynn competing all over the country. He's running Roy, who is 3 years and 6 months old. He's by David Howells' own nip, who we'll be seeing also running in the Supreme, because David is qualified with 2 dogs, and out of Jill, who's owned by Rhiannon Jones. So this is Roy. He's only a young dog.
Just been given a whistle just to open him out slightly, I'd say. Another one.
He's going on that big patch of the greener grass there, and
a few dogs in that little patch, either as a dead spot or a spot they lose sight of a sheep. A lot of them are a little bit unaware, unsure and really in that phase. Roy's there.
yeah, he got behind the sheep well, and he lifted them, and they're coming now down towards that first fetch gate. And as I said, he's an accomplished handler, and
And again, he's got 2 chances at this.
But he's created those 2 chances
Yes,
as well.
yeah,
He had
yeah.
2 good runs. He did have a little bit of a mishap with his other dog Nip, and he was very nervous yesterday afternoon
as the day went on. But
the scores came rolling through. But he's been in the Supreme before, I believe, and you know he's a seasoned campaigner. He's been out with his dogs for many years, and again, he's got a big.
Literated really all morning here, really, that yes, you can have a good dog, but then he needs that everyday work and experience, and these dogs would have it if you visit Fair Farm in the Cymru Valley.
And he works with his brother, of course, Lynn, and every day is like a sheepdog trial for those two, because I can guarantee you that there's a fair bit of leg pulling goes on between them. They're a pair of characters. I first met Lynn many years ago at shearing competitions, and then David came, and they're not afraid for a little bit of tunny coice, a bit of leg pulling between them.
Yeah, but a very nice family.
And a lot of good handlers in that valley as well, of course. It's the home to a lot of Supreme dogs over the years, with the Ellises down the bottom, and then Richard Miller
chaps. And the Howells, David Meek. So you've got a few...
a lot of good dogs in a small area.
Yeah.
So he's taken the redirection quite well there, Myron, and looks to be...
Slight hesitation on the first one, but once he received that second one, the dog's off. Very wide out run. But it all depends what the judges really... Most probably, although the 4 judges judge separately, most probably they have discussed amongst themselves what would be the ideal outrun here today.
Yeah, and of course they will be...
What they'd be looking for.
Yes. Roy looks to have gone out well there, and you know, if he is a little bit wide, it'll affect the time as well, because it takes time for the dog to go out that little bit wider. Roy coming round behind the sheep now. The sheep have started to move. I've seen quite a bit of this young dog around the trials in the build-up. There's been a big South Walian community coming up into the trials over the border and into the Midlands. And quite a few of the trials, majority of the prizes have been coming back to Wales. And Roy is a big part of that team. And
yeah, no, it's and again we mentioned really the young handlers coming through, and I'd say the average age here. These boys these days will travel, going to Scotland, to England, to a trial. If they think it's a big course, a challenge, they want that challenge, and I think that's how a lot of these handlers these days doing so well, because they're willing to take the challenge of competing in different places with different sheep, and it all helps when you come to days like these.
And the thing is with these guys as well, I know when the Howells turn up at the trial, it's a truck full. And there's a back full of dogs, and there's a lot of people in the front. And they bring the banter with them as
Yes,
well.
yeah,
So, and I know that David Howells, his son Jack, has started running now as well.
Jack's here with David, been all week. I'm not sure what he's told the headmaster where he is, but it's lovely to see Jack really started following David and started competing, and has had a bit of a success already this season in open trials as well. So well done to Jack, and stick at it, boy.
Yeah, that goes it. There's a big trialing family as well. There's David Connick on the outskirts, and you know there's a lot of big sheepdog men in that area. And as I say, when these guys turn up at a trial, I know Alan Edwards has been running with them, and then you've got Jack and Lynn and David and Keris, and they all come together, and they all help and encourage each other, and they've been great to me as well. They've helped.
Well, I'd say they're one family really at the end of the day,
and yeah, the banter comes with positive criticism
yes,
as well, but they're not afraid to pull your leg if something doesn't quite go according to plan. David now they're bringing his second package down, and the packet coming again a good pace. So it's quite economical. He a few seconds gone maybe on his outrun, because the dog took a wider line than some people have taken previously, but he is an experienced shepherd and handler, and he could make that up round the course if he could keep the pace on his drive and then have an efficient fetch as well.
Yeah. So he's given the command look back, so the sheep seem to love this little spot. They all seem to be drawing to the same position there.
Yeah, and you can see just a shepherd over there as well with the dog, just ensuring that they weren't going off course.
Yeah, the shepherd wouldn't be really involved, but they wouldn't really want him perhaps to drift behind that little tump and really up to the top of the field. They'll just be there, just as a little cautionary measure, really.
And they won't have gone out through the exhaust pen either, wouldn't they? That's the main job of that shepherd there. But David Howells and Roy now then bringing those sheep back together into one packet, and now the driving part of the course will start. So 20 sheep together. I know that they run Welsh sheep, but they're a little bit redder in the coat than these, a little bit harder down there.
Yeah, a slight different.
More the Penderian type of Welsh sheep, but they'd work very similar to these.
And again, David would know really how to handle these sorts of sheep, really.
Yeah, and it's interesting when you look down the list of competitors, a lot of these shepherds are hill shepherds, aren't they? They handle the hill sheep and big scopy sheep. Because traditionally the hill sheep are known as a little bit lighter, a little bit flightier, and you need a little bit different type of dog to deal with them. A little sharper, maybe.
Yeah. Looks like a good line up there. Dog round.
The big difference with when they're driving these 20 sheep, they fill that drive gate, don't they?
Yeah.
And they've made them a little bit wider as well. It's 7 yards normally for the qualifying, and I think we're 9 today to accommodate all those 20 sheep to go through.
But when you drive towards them, they do look narrow.
Yeah, I could see a lot of competitors this morning pacing them just to make sure that nobody made the mistake. But
Oh no, I don't think any mistake's been done. But
no,
when we look
no,
from a distance,
no.
it's
But yeah,
the
that's what I mean.
it's the
You would
optical illusion really of and the distance they're away from you.
you would check it though, when you just. So David now got these sheep on the cross drive. Just this side of that post. So he'll have picked his line.
Most probably had Jack to walk around for him.
There's a fair contingent from that valley here this morning, so
And again, sometimes, like David had difficulty in the qualifying of one of these. That's in your mind sometimes. Oh, I missed it in the qual. I did a mistake. It looks.
He did have a bit of stick about that. He went for a tight turn.
It didn't quite happen. It looks. Again, slightly, recovered well.
He made sure of that gate this time, though, as you say. And yeah, the stick he had, I know that David Meek was waiting for him as he came off the field. And it's just paid off. Because he's definitely learned from it, and that's something I think we're going to see more and more handlers do now, is make sure the obstacle and guarantee.
Yeah, as I said earlier. Really, it's better sometimes to bring it, just push him up slightly to gain that obstacle than risk it for that bang on line, and if you do miss it, well, you've lost more points. And it's
and you're showing to the judge as well, that you've hit the obstacle. There's no doubt in their mind. And it looks like he's concentrating on his return leg there into that shedding ring.
But all these top handlers will have a good line back. That's why you're there, really. And sometimes, novice little handlers or handlers who are just starting to compete, it's well worth watching these handlers, how they do it. And very often I like watching those little young handlers or novice handlers. You give us commands, you watch these runs and give the commands yourself. And very often these people will be 3-4 seconds most probably in front of you.
Yeah, as a novice handler myself, you are bang on there. I tried it And yeah, watching Colin Gordon again yesterday when he was running the brace and his commands were coming before the actual commands were coming off the handler, and like you say, it's the sharpness of thinking of these handlers.
To preempt a situation before it's happened.
It's put right before it goes wrong.
Yeah.
So David now then just settling these sheep. It looks like he's got a lot of collared sheep standing in front of him.
And that kind of skill doesn't come overnight. It'll take a few years for that kind of skill to come to you, really.
Yeah. And David Howells now then just settling his sheep, getting the job lined up, and as we've seen earlier, they try and get a good split to start, which sets.
Yeah, if you can get a nice little cut-off start, it draws the others.
Yeah, it's not ones and twos. If you can aim 8 or 9 to go, and it gives a decent packet to draw the rest to go to them when you're shedding them out.
Yeah.
So again, no rush from Dai Howells. And that's the sign of these top handlers as well. They don't seem to rush anything.
No, and each one's been out there very quiet.
Yeah,
because if you're there really shouting, lie down, stand, you actually disturb the sheep. The sheep tense, knows really, oh. But if you can be quiet, walking round, it's all.
When I first started going to sheepdog trials, I was recommended by Richard Millichap to watch Gwyn Penmachno shedding. And there'd be hardly a word. It would be a real partnership, and then there'd be a little cut and buff. There'd be a lot of sheep gone.
Another, I just mentioned earlier, Irwin Daniel, Wyn Edwards, again, a master at this kind of work. And when they're at it, it looks so easy when they do it.
It does. And then, of course, we've got a new breed of those people coming through now with your David Howells and, Kevin Evans, and then you've got Ricky Hutchinson. There's a new breed coming through that new handlers are looking up to.
Yeah. And some of these handlers we've just mentioned earlier, some perhaps our competitors these days wouldn't remember those older handlers or hadn't had the opportunity of actually seeing them really when they were competing.
No. I was talking to a couple of trialists over there in the Midlands, and they've just seen the book of Gwyn Penmachno by Sue Main, and that's a little bit of a Bible to some people. And these books are very informative, and of course we all go back to Glyn Jones's training videos and books, and watching the Quack Pack as well, walking around the shows all over the country.
Well, hopefully, when we do get the opportunity of doing displays around the country, really, it's we use a flock of ducks. Okay, it's a little bit of entertainment, but hopefully within that you just give a little slight to show these people, because very often a lot of your general public have watched One Man and His Dog, but sometimes they still haven't really taken it in. There's only 4 left, right, stop, and there's more really coming to this kind of competition. But very often when you bring it back to basics, then they realise how simple really one kind of way is getting the dog.
He's just dribbling a few off. You 2 to start, and then 2 singles went, so there's 4 gone off. Oh, there's a collared ewe stood there.
He's turned it back in.
Another one just gone. He's quite happy to take them off one at a time.
Yeah, well, if it's
and if that's going to work
he's
for
not
him,
the judges shouldn't be penalising him taking 1 off at a time or 2 off. Or as long as it's working like a manner, the sheep are in the ring.
just has Every time he tries to make an opportunity,
But what one is...
that one is stood there like a little statue. He's just checked there just to make sure that no collared sheep went out, because he'd have to turn the dog round and bring them all back in and start again. So
And again, not only as competitors, but these boys are... 2012, we had the International in Cardiff and Redlands Farm in Bonraston, and David Lynn and the family were instrumental there. Well, it was his father-in-law's place, but you know, they're actually workers as well and willing to help in putting sheepdog trials on. There's 3 and 1 coming.
yeah, and again, this, in the relative terms of it all, this is quite a young dog as well, at just 3.5, and but then he would have done a fair bit of work there on the Gatley.
Yeah, I think younger dogs are coming through sooner these days. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but I do believe on the odd occasion we're pushing these dogs sometimes perhaps too young. These nurseries now, like, you know, you've got them on a county basis with us in Wales. You've got your South Wales final, All Wales final, All Nations final. There is more to play really in those younger dogs, and some of those dogs are being sold afterwards for a lot of money for being future prospects. But it's because I think historically a lot of the older competitors wouldn't dream of having a dog as young as this competing. They would like a year under each leg was probably...
I was just going to say, the old adage used to be a year under each leg, and 1 under his tail for luck.
Yeah. But I think the sport has come more professional, really, Ned. I think we dedicated more time. Historically, most probably, it was like a Saturday out for some of these competitors.
And I think as well as that, Marion, there's been a lot of changes as well, a lot of developments. The dog foods, of course, have changed, and everything has played its part into making sure that the, you know...
And we just spoke earlier, really, and I say initially the Agricultural Training Board, and instrumental behind that, and it was lovely to see him here yesterday, was Charles Arch, and he was the instrumental behind the Agricultural Training Board in getting classes to initially train handlers to how to train the sheepdog, and a lot of those who have been on courses over the years are competing these days in sheepdog trials, and it's but by now there is people out there that take on people to help them train your dogs and have classes themselves. So it's evolved really, but it's been a huge part of that little acorn being planted really, and it's been
and as you say, it's developed the sport of sheepdog trialing, but it's developed working sheepdogs as well, and things have changed a lot. And of course, travel. You can travel a lot further in a shorter period of time.
yes, well, you think really, you know, for society's celebrated its 100th anniversary, and you think like those early internationals, father used to go there, it was like a 2-day event in reaching some of those places in Scotland, right? In the old little Austin 7 or whatever. It's
I think you're right in saying that I read an article on when Raymond McPherson first went to some of his trials. He would have tied a mutton carcass on a rope, and that would have had to done the dogs, and would have been self-feed for a few days. So things have changed such a lot, and even to go to a trial now is a lot easier than it used to be.
But I had respect to those older, when you look back at pictures of the old internationals, and father used to go to nationals and internationals. Okay, going to national, it was like his sports jacket and tie, but the international, the suit came out. And when you look at the old pictures of the handlers, they really dressed up for the occasion. You know, the international was the I'm not saying anybody's underdressed coming here, but it's fashion has evolved. But they did really. But that was their annual holiday.
David now is still on the shed, and he'll be very aware of the time ticking away, but he's not panicking. He's not jumping up and down trying to make a gap.
No, at the end of
So
the
he's
day, really, it's been for sheds happening. There's nothing really for sheep having been out of the ring. It's just the way that he's got to work them.
Yeah, and the dog is working well. If a collared sheep does happen to just start to walk, very calmly puts it back into the packet.
Yeah.
And as you say, he's just working those sheep all the time. And he's not panicking. He's just had a quick glance there. You can see in the background there some famous faces. I can see David Chap there, and Vic Morris, Mike Northwood, of course, and
yes, and Mike will be joining us in here later.
Logan Williams, probably one of the unluckiest men on the field.
He had one of the worst sheep, I'd say, of the whole.
And his father, of course, Barry Williams, who played rugby for Wales and the Lions.
Yeah, and to be, like we were speaking about young handlers, Logan, his background, not from a farming community. His dad, rugby player, professional rugby player, but Logan from an early age wanted a sheepdog. And the result is, because of that eagerness and
reserve at the World Trial, of course, in the young handlers. So.
But the other side of that fence, we're almost probably talking, oh, well, why doesn't he do this? Why doesn't he do that? It's so easy for us all to say these things, but when you're actually out there, it's not as easy.
Yeah, it is very easy until you put that whistle and pick up the crook and it can get quite a lonely place out there when you're on it.
It's very lonely, it's when things don't quite go to plan. And I think I mentioned over the course of the last 2 days, especially like in the qualifying, when things go wrong in an ordinary trial, very often you just raise your cap and you walk off. It's not my day. But it's a team event. You've got to try and gain points for your team. It's a difficult situation.
Yeah, and even in the Supreme, you keep going until the end because every point counts, doesn't it? And David Howells and his young dog Roy, 3 years and 6 months old. And as we said, he's got a lot of experience. Second in the 2017 World Trial semi-final and 10th in the final, 8 times a Welsh team member. And of course, I think he's the only competitor with 2 dogs into this Supreme.
Yeah. But these final ones are proving a little bit of difficulty for David and
2 uncollared sheep to come off. and again, he's eating into his time. And he will be aware of that by now. He will be wondering how and what do I need to do.
And very often you see sometimes penning sheep. You're there at the mouth of the pen, nothing happened. The whistle blows, time, you just relax. Next thing they walk in. Sometimes, like, you could be working them. No.
That one collared sheep, she is
In
determined.
the wrong place, she's...
I say he could start to mutter under his breath at her in a second. Well, now then, he's got one. He's got them both. Calls the dog in, pushes the 5 away. Now he's going to make sure that they're out of harm's way.
Go on, David, run after him.
Final check, making sure if there's 5 collars there.
So he knows what probably time is playing against him. He's running. Never seen David running so fast.
He'll have a bit of stick about that from his brother, I'm sure. And then he'll probably be telling him he's never seen him run before. Wouldn't this be something now if he could just walk these straight to the...
Oh, and the bell goes. So, unfortunately for David, the bell beats him with Roy. But Thomas Sullivan will be next, and David will be back shortly with Nip. Not so much time for David to recover. And he raises his cap. David Howells and Roy.
For centuries, farmers just like me have learned to work with nature and the elements to manage our land sustainably.